Hello, my name is Michael Todran, and I am today's host of the Landscape Architecture Podcast. And today's guest is very special to me. Her name is Annie Bergelin. And Annie, can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me here, Michael. It's great to be here, and I'm pleased to talk to you and catch up. You and I are old classmates at Ohio State, which is so fun. And I was a year behind you. I graduated in 2013 from Ohio State, and I'm now a licensed landscape architect in New York City. And I'm here because I recently completed hiking the Appalachian Trail, and I'm excited to talk to you about that experience.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I have so many questions about your experience hiking the Appalachian Trail. But let's just get right into like the most important question, and that is, how did you poop and how did you pee on let's just start there, and then that way we'll just like rip off the band-aid, and then we'll go into all the other spiritual awakenings and journeys from there. So first of all, we should probably say that the hike, the reason why I asked that question is because the hike took 4.5 months, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
for me it took
for you, yeah,
months,
correct. Yeah. So how did that work?
Personal hygiene and all that fun
all
stuff.
Of that. Yeah, sure.
You know, if we were on trail, that would be a perfectly appropriate lead-in, because there are a few key topics that are talked about on trail, and bathroom logistics are one of them. So yeah, as you said, it took me about 4.5 months to hike the trail, and I started on March 21st, finished on August 10th, and 2,193 miles from Georgia to Maine. That's Springer Mountain in Georgia to Katahdin in Maine. And certainly that's a long way to go to hold it. You can't so you get good at it, I guess I would say. It's when you're in the woods for that long, I think you are changed in many ways, of course. You lose, well, first of all, being on the Appalachian Trail, you kind of lose your sense of personal space, not your sense of personal space, more I would say protection of personal space. In the real world, as you like to say, because I'm back in the real world now.
I think you left the real world, and now you're in the fake world. Yeah, now you're in the fake world on Zoom.
Oh, right.
In binary.
Right. So in the civilized world here, always very, there are a lot of things everyone upholds, certain appearances. You're very concerned about your appearances. You're concerned about how you smell, concerned about how close you are to other people, COVID notwithstanding, but and just a lot of those I guess like those social norms are stripped away, and you're not as concerned with all those little details, because you're sort of stripped down to your fundamental being, I would say. And that's something that you find is true even when interacting with people. You have no facade. You can't have a facade. You're out there. It's just you. You can't be distracting people with your amazing fashion or your amazing whatever. It's hard to be phony, I would say. So
right.
So that's sort of a roundabout way of saying, well, for me, everyone has a different way, but my experience was that just go quick. If it's number one, just, side of the trail, go quick. And number two, there are a couple options. There are privies, which are sort of moldering pits. They're composting toilets, and they're maintained by volunteers. You can use those, or you dig a cat hole.
Right, because sometimes the timing doesn't work out, right? Like, yeah.
Absolutely. And I often found that I prefer a cat hole because the privies can be really disgusting.
Probably.
So as long as you're, a little bit off trail, you're fine. Okay. And you're, I guess. Mm-hmm.
Right. So now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about other things. So you well, first off, you are a licensed landscape architect. Mm-hmm. And I imagine that this was like a spiritual walk in a way. I mean, I don't see how it couldn't be. Even if the intention wasn't, I don't see how walking for 4.5 months like this didn't change you as a person and mm-hmm. also as a landscape architect. So should we start out talking about the human side of it or the landscape architecture side of it?
Well, I guess the human side, because you said something about how I started or didn't start with a spiritual intention, and I did not start with the intention of a spiritual finding myself or anything like that. So I think it's a little important, before I talk about the landscape, it actually is important to talk about where I came from there. Early in this winter, I found myself in a position of sort of transitioning out of the design world and recognizing that I needed to find a better fit for myself in landscape architecture. And, I've always been really drawn to natural resources and outdoor wilderness experiences. So it was a realization of needing to sort of move maybe closer towards that realm in my career. And so found myself in a position of transition, I should say, and didn't really know exactly what to do. Also didn't want to jump right into another job, especially after being closed in for so many months during the pandemic. The idea of sitting behind a computer for a long time, as we all know, there's a lot of fatigue there. So saw somebody give a talk. A man named Derek Lugo spoke about his experience on the Appalachian Trail, and I thought, well, hey, that could be fun. Sure, why not? I didn't really think about really what it meant to do it. I had not been backpacking for 10 years, so it to me it was really just an adventure. And I tend to be goal oriented, and I like a challenge. So it was like, cool, that sounds like a fun challenge. Let's walk from Georgia to Maine. So it was just that, but I also found that I was terrified. The night before, I was crying because I just what am I doing? And got to the beginning and met amazing people who were also terrified and didn't know what they were doing. So I met my buddy Bear Paw on the second day. I should say, so everybody on trail has a trail name. And that's, you never know people's real names. You might, you can ask them, but for the most part, everybody goes by their trail name. And I'll tell you, my trail name was Guns.
Guns?
And Guns.
Is that an Annie Oakley reference or no?
Oh, yes, you got it.
Oh, cool.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Because somebody was like, "Oh, Annie, like Annie Oakley, you're tough," and I have big guns, so that's exactly where it came from. The S is a money sign, just for fun, like
Sure.
silliness.
Yeah.
But I didn't love, promoting guns or anything. It has nothing to do with that. But there are a lot of interesting experiences introducing myself as guns, I should say. A lot of different reactions. Anyway, so starting the trail was Matt Bearpaw, and he and I walked to.
Sorry, you broke up a little bit. Hello? Okay. Try again.
Did you say something?
Yeah, so I guess if I do this,
I cut out.
That means I can't hear you. So start off where you and Bear Claw started walking.
Okay. Yeah, so I met Bearpaw.
Bearpaw, sorry, not Bear Claw.
Day, yeah, it's okay. Bearpaw. And he's a 35-year-old former Marine, and that's the kind of person you want to be with on trail. And we got along, and from there it was all good. Absolutely along the way, I went through all kinds of transformations. I mean, it wasn't a conscious thing. It wasn't something I was trying to do, but it just happened. In the same way I was talking about, being stripped down of your sort of ego when you're on trail. I found myself saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm so blessed to be here. I'm so lucky to be here." And I'm not a religious person. I would say it's sort of spiritual, but it was an incredible experience in that way. So it was spiritual, it was physical, it was emotional, it was a lot of things. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you went through 4 pairs of shoes?
4 pairs of shoes.
4 pairs of shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what are Oh, go ahead.
They wear out, they get beat up.
It's a lot of miles.
Your feet get beat up right along with them.
Yeah. How are your feet? How, like, I'm assuming lots of blisters and.
They're getting better. What happens is your feet actually widen because you're walking on them. So the second pair of shoes I had was actually a full size larger than the pair I started out with. And the first pair I had blisters on every single toe because I had been walking for 8 hours in the rain. So soaking wet feet in shoes that were already starting to be too small is terrible recipe.
What about like infections
blisters.
and care and sanitary of your feet? That's a big deal.
Yeah, you do have to be careful because you can get like swamp foot walking for so long in the rain. The key is to just make sure you're keeping your feet dry at certain intervals, and definitely at night, air them out. But thankfully I never had any like really gnarly infections or anything. Yeah.
And then at night, what kind of shelter or lack of shelter, or how did sleeping work?
So you carry a tent, right? Or I carried a tent. Some people just have sort of tarps, or some people have what's called a bivvy, which is a very small, quote unquote, tent. And there are also a number of shelters along the trail. And these are sort of 3-sided lean-tos, so to speak, that have just a flat wooden platform in them. And it's kind of funny because they look pretty creepy and dismal when you approach them. Some are beautiful, others are really not, and very worn down, but they run the gamut in terms of how their appearances and everything. But if it's thunderstorm and raining, you sleep in those shelters. And if it's freezing cold rain, it's nice to sleep in those shelters. But the other thing about the shelters is those tend to be the places where people congregate. So I would be walking by myself mostly every day. So you're spending, 8, 9, 10, 12 hours walking, and maybe you're talking to somebody for 15 minutes, or maybe you see just a handful of people throughout the day. So at the end of the day, I usually like to camp at shelters where it was more social. I could meet up with other hikers and talk about the day, or, just say hello. So I would either pitch a tent or sleep in the shelters, depending on.
What are some of the written rules on the trail, and what are some of the unwritten rules on the trail?
Well, that's a funny question. Unwritten rules. Having just spoken about shelters, I think there's a lot of shelter etiquette. If you wake up at 4 a.m. and you want to make your coffee, don't spark up your camp stove next to somebody's head at 4 a.m, which people do. Because you're sleeping next to people like that. So as soon as somebody starts moving in the shelter, everybody starts to wake up. So being considerate of other people, because your personal space is so limited and there's not much privacy. So it's just being considerate. There's a lot of unspoken rules. And with regard to written rules, that varies. I would say that varies state by state, actually. There are, the trail passes through 14 states. So in each state, there are different rules and regulations, and the land management of the corridor that basically makes the trail is made up of, it's a collection of, private land easements, state parks, national parks, preserves and reserves and wilderness areas. So that's really one of the fascinating things about the trail that I guess gets more towards the landscape element that was really interesting to me when I was walking through and learning, because it's such an incredible effort to maintain and manage that whole stretch of trail so that it feels like a wilderness experience. And that just requires an incredible effort by so many people, and so many different rules. I couldn't tell you all the rules, but yeah. That's, and in some places you have to actually buy a permit to go through. So like this Great Smoky National Park, you have to purchase a permit to pass through. In the White Mountains in New Hampshire, you have to pay to camp in certain areas. And those are, the camping areas are restricted in order to protect the wilderness component of the landscape. So the rules vary depending on where you are, and different hikers have different feelings towards the rules. I find that I tend to be a purist on trail. I'm really interested in observing, like, leave no trace rules,
right?
And just observing a lot of the other rules that are in place, because having experience from a land management perspective, I know that there's a reason for them. The rules might seem silly or annoying, but when you're dealing with so many people on trail, it's such a high impact area, it makes a difference to have people only camp in one certain area rather than just stealth camping all over the place. Because the more stealth campsites you have, the more the forest is impacted and resources are impacted and that sort of thing. So, different hikers have different attitudes towards it, but I tried to abide by the rules as best I could.
What about safety? Did you ever feel unsafe, or was it varying, or was it some in your imagination, some in reality?
That, I never felt unsafe. That's a lie. The only times I felt unsafe were when I was climbing up a mountain, boulders, like what felt like I was climbing Everest or something, with wind ripping and rain blowing and slippery rocks, and I'm by myself and it's like 40 degrees. That did not feel safe and is scary. So that otherwise, and they say that the other, most scary thing on trail is other humans. Other humans are the threat. The animals and that type of thing are not such a threat. But I did have 6 bear encounters, and I saw 3 moose. Yeah. And, in the moment, they're really scary, but bears are more afraid of us than we are of them. So, except for the habituated bears, which unfortunately is a problem. But getting back to the rules, one of the rules is don't feed bears, and make sure you're behaving properly around them. Because as soon as you start feeding bears, as soon as they start learning they can get food from your tent, or they can get food from a bear hang, then they're habituated, and it's not their fault if they're, attacking you. They're just going after your food. So, because they know you have food. So that's one of the rules that I was really
So we're talking a little bit about the fauna. What about the flora? Like, what was that experience like? Because you went through a lot of different typologies.
Yeah. And I started at the end of March, when there were no leaves on the trees, and ended in mostly conifer forest, I would say, in Maine. But experiencing the transition of the seasons on trail is so fun. It's just beautiful. And when you're walking every day and you're walking in it every day, you can just see the slow transformation, and see things just growing in and evolving. And it's pretty awesome, I should say, that when spring comes, everything's in bloom. It's just pretty magical. So in the South, one of my favorite memories was the ramps that were growing. I don't know if you're familiar with ramps.
What are ramps?
It's like a wild leek onion. It's in the leek onion family, and they're edible, and they're delicious. So in New York, where they're bulbs, and in New York, where I'm from, it's highly coveted and highly secretive, and nobody tells anybody where to get ramps, and you have to be very careful about harvesting them because they're over harvested. And in the South, in North Carolina, Tennessee, I got to a point where they were everywhere. They were rampant, the rampant ramps. And that's a springtime treat that's just magical, because you can't just find them always. And there they were alongside the trail. So I could just eat them every day. And it was like every day a daily reminder of spring and all the, I guess, bounty that it brings. So
that's a substance. So let's like talk about that. Like, how does food and how does water work? And then after that, let's talk about the weight of your backpack. So let's talk about food and water, and then we'll talk about your pack, right? Okay, so how does food work?
How does food work? Food, anything and everything. So they say you burn about 5,000 calories every day.
Okay.
Which is a lot. So there's something called hiker hunger that kicks in after a couple of weeks, which is when you feel that 5,000 calorie burn going. And so for breakfast, I would sort of drink instant coffee and carnation instant breakfast.
What kind of instant coffee though? Because it's like the good Starbucks powder kind, or like the kind that makes you shit your pants, Folgers type?
Starbucks is far superior. Absolutely far superior. Folgers in flavor. And those Folger instant, sometimes the stores don't sell Starbucks, so you have to buy the Folgers. Right. But I would mix them with carnation instant breakfast. So when I mixed it with a chocolate carnation, that was a mocha. And when I mixed it with vanilla, it was a latte. So that was like my nice morning treat. And that's added calories to your breakfast too.
Wait, before you go on that, I would absolutely, myself, I would have to have coffee every morning, but isn't coffee a diuretic? Like, isn't that not the smartest thing to do? Does the psychological benefits of having coffee outweigh like it being a diuretic?
I guess it's just a kick in the morning. Okay. And some people would even, I've heard of people taking caffeine pills. It's really whatever works on trail, because it's a rigorous effort every day.
Right.
Some days are easier than others, but it's a lot. I crunched my numbers and I calculated, I averaged 16 and a half miles a day. And that's not including 11 0 days that I took. A 0 day is when you're
just fully
in town.
Sure.
Take a day off. I loved, like, around 20 miles a day was my sweet spot. And, of course I would do less than that, and I would do more than that. I would do up to 30 miles a day sometimes. It all depends on the terrain and weather and how you're feeling and everything. Right. So,
okay, so you start out with the coffee, and then
whatever works to get you through that day. Sure. And towards the end, I loved eating Oreos for breakfast. That was with my coffee, and then that was, and that's one of the things I really miss about being on trail: eating whatever you want, whenever you want. But coffee and a bar in the morning was my go-to, and then you'd have a snack mid-morning, and I like to eat those things while I was walking. I never cooked breakfast or anything, and lunch would typically be tuna and a tortilla wrap, and then combined with some crackers and nuts and snacks and other things. Peanut M&Ms are one of my favorite trail snacks. And dinner would be some kind of dehydrated food. Before I started, I ordered dehydrated food in bulk, and had some packages sent to me for that. Otherwise, it was Knorr size. Knorr is like a pre-packaged, just add water kind of grocery store dinner thing, and those are really good for trail. But also, so on the topic of food, I should mention trail angels and trail magic, which is an amazing thing. And it speaks to the culture that's around the trail and the number of people who are really involved and love being there. And so trail magic is when somebody decides to go either to a road crossing or just a trailhead and bring snacks or food and give them to hikers.
Oh,
and it sounds
nice.
like a really creepy thing, but it's just incredible. And for instance, one of my favorite trail magic memories, it was pouring rain in Southern Virginia. It was probably in the 40s or 50s. It was cold and wet, and get to a parking lot, and there's a man there cooking bacon cheeseburgers under this like teeny little kiosk in the pouring rain for hikers. And it was myself and another hiker, and we were there, and it just changes your mood and helps so much. So so trail magic is a huge thing that hikers are very appreciative of. Yeah. So that's food.
How many times did you cry during this hike?
None,
None,
actually. That's what.
Oh my God.
No, that's.
I would have cried
know,
like once a week or once a day, maybe even.
No, that's why. I cried, the night before.
Okay.
And those were the tears of fear, which I don't usually. I don't know. I had never felt that way. I was so scared that I was crying. And
I guess.
And then,
if you didn't cry during the hike, are you not naturally a crier, or you just didn't need to? Or that sounds.
I just didn't need. I never. No matter the days would be hard and tough, and sometimes just really grueling, but always at the end of the day, I would just feel so grateful that I could be there. And there would be something that I would think of that would be like, wow, actually that day was amazing. And that's, maybe I'm just sort of blissfully ignorant or just an overly optimistic person, but there would always be like sort of one little thing that would just make me realize that, hey, that was really awesome. That was really wonderful. So like I cried on like the last day, and then I cried on the first day, and then on the last day going up Mount Katahdin when it was,
that's awesome. All right, what about water? So you're talking about food. How much do you have to carry a day?
Well, so you carry 2-liter bottles as a standard, basic, not full, but you would have 2 bottle vessels.
Two 1-liter bottles. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And like a smart water liter bottle is very common to see hikers carrying that. And then the most common water filter is something called Sawyer, like Sawyer Squeeze. And it's really easy to use, and you have to find just a water source and you squeeze your water through it. And your water carry would depend on how far of a stretch it would be through one water source to another. So, and it can always range. Sometimes you would get to a water source and it's just a trickle. And you really have to plan ahead and know. There's an incredible app, which, yes, in this age of technology, this app called Gut Hooks, which most hikers use. And I should show it to you actually, but it's crowdsourced, so it shows you where all the shelters are, it shows you where water sources are, and shows you where all these different things are. And I'm going to show it to you on my phone. So here's like the topography view.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so you can see this water droplet. That's a water source. And you can click on it, and it says that, and it says what it is. And then people will comment and they'll say, oh, there's water here today. It's a good flow or not. So I know it makes it sound like the trail is the easiest thing in the world, but you still have to walk up those mountains.
Right.
But it's an incredible resource to have people saying what the water looks like in certain places, because a lot of times it could be really poor quality water. So you want to know those things. There was one time I missed my water pickup that I was intending to get, and I had to go, and I missed it by like a mile. I had walked past it. It was a mile. I wasn't going to walk back. So I had to go the next 8 miles without water, basically, which was pretty intense.
Right.
And then a thunderstorm came, and I was really parched. So I was like sucking water off of the rhododendron leaves, because rhododendron leaves really hold water nicely. So, so the water is really important, but it's also really heavy. 1 liter of water weighs, 2.2 pounds, I think.
Yeah.
So that's another consideration that you are making when you're looking ahead. If you're going to climb a mountain, you don't need to carry a full 2 liters of water. So, yeah.
Now that we're talking about weight, let's talk about how much your pack weighed. And then let's talk about like, I love watching those videos where people like do a flat lay of their bags, and they say, I would never pack this again after this hike. So what are some of the good things? Okay, how much did it weigh? And then what are some of the smart things that you are happy about that you did on your pack? And then what are some of the things that were like you felt like were unnecessary, if applicable?
Yeah. So my pack weighed different amounts at different times. When you start, it's a lot colder, so you have a lot of cold weather gear. But I know when I went through airport security, I had full food and full weight, but no water. And my pack was like 25 pounds about, and that was without water. So if you have 2 full liters, that would be add another like 4.5 pounds to that. So you're getting up towards 30. I think on average, my pack was about 25 pounds, which is not ultralight, but not super heavy either. There's something called base weight, and your base weight is basically the weight of your pack and all the gear that's in it, and nothing that's consumable. So it would be like your sleeping bag, your tent, and I never really obsessed about those things. Some people are really obsessive about it. But I found that I was just making it work, and I was able to do it, and I was able to carry it, and so I just went with it. I didn't. I did, of course, switch out cold weather and warm weather gear, and so I didn't need my puffy jacket, for instance, when I got up to Virginia, because it was getting warm. It was getting into summer and spring, or spring and summer. Yeah, so I would say probably on average it was about 25 pounds. And in terms of things, I love Jetboil, which is a camping. I just, when I learned how to backpack 15 years ago, I think, I used Jetboil, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna take that. But some people are ultra light and just carry the lightest stove possible. So that was a heavier item that it was worth carrying to me. And I always had a lot of condiments in my bag, like mayonnaise packets and relish packets, and like, which are, when you look, I know it sounds ridiculous, those things are small, but everything in your pack adds up. everything in your bag is added weight on your back. So sometimes I felt like I had a full pantry of like stuff, and
did you feel
a
like
lot of people wouldn't do that.
Right.
But like I was doing it, so
Sure.
I just kept doing what I was doing. If if it wasn't a problem,
did you feel
why change
heavier
it?
in the rain? Did you feel like the weight, like with your clothes wet, like did it feel significantly heavier?
I definitely would sleep in shelters in the rain because I didn't want to carry a wet tent. A wet tent is heavier. My tent was good, but it just held some of the water, so that's added weight. In the rain, there's something about I'm a little competitive. I'm a little like, just like fight in the rain. That's what it felt. Yeah, you can do it. Um, I mean, the worst part. 2 weeks in New Hampshire, Vermont, New Hampshire were rainy for about 2 weeks.
Straight.
And not straight, but there's a lot of rain, and so you have to have a certain willingness to suffer, I would say,
right.
and be able to sort of work through that, putting on wet clothes every day.
Yeah.
Which is, after a while, it also gets pretty stinky.
Yeah. You got to see our classmate, Jack Rosenberg.
Yeah.
So how was that like? That was, I would assume, a treat for you, to be able to take a hot shower. And what was that like? Well, first of all, let's give a shout out to Jack. What's up, Jack?
Hey, Jack. Yeah, Jack and Katie. They were wonderful. They hosted me for a night. They live not too far from the trail, and it was a great opportunity to visit and say hi. And he brought his 2 kids out, and we walked a little bit of the trail with them. That was really fun. I stayed with a number of people while I was on trail, friends and family friends, and Matt Johnson and Shelly also came out and did trail magic for me, which was amazing. So shout out to them too, from Ohio State. People who just help take care of hikers is such a wonderful thing, because even just the smallest thing of giving somebody a ride, if you hitch a ride into town, or to go to a store, or just giving somebody some fresh water. For instance, in Pennsylvania, there's a real dry stretch of trail, and especially in a period of drought. And some of the water sources there, the quality is so people who leave gallon jugs of water there, so you can just fill up your bottle. So any kindness that you receive from the outside world, no matter how small, feels just incredible. And it's so getting to stay with them was wonderful.
I mean, I'm assuming you did your laundry, took a hot shower, slept in a bed that night, had a coffee, maybe some bacon in the morning. How did you like go back on the trail after that? Like, how did you like gear up your mind to like, okay, like I feel like I would have stretched out my like one day to like 2 to 3 to 4. Like, what did it take to like get that intestinal fortitude to
that's dangerous when you take a 0 day, like getting too comfy. Although I will say, when I was in New York and home with my family, have 3 zeros in a row, it felt like too much. 3 days
Oh, if
was
I
like,
put
okay,
3 days with my family,
I'm ready to go
I'm
back.
ready to go back to maybe like a day and a half. I'm like, all right, put me back on the trail. I'm good. I guess context is important on that one.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's an interesting question, because I did find that it's, you know how people talk about getting their sort of game face on, and you get ready for your game. Like, there's an element of that to hiking the trail. So Annie in the real world is a person, and then Guns on the trail was like a different person. And getting into that mentality, that mode of like, okay, back on trail, like, here we are, we're hiking and we're pushing, and you're pushing yourself. And it helped to find trail friends and meet up with them. That was an immediate way to get back into mode. Because I don't want to talk about like uncomfortable or not get in mode. Totally awesome. An amazing experience to be in that world. But the two are so different.
Any friends that you're gonna maintain after this?
Of course. Okay. Yeah.
Any romance on the trail?
No, I have a romance off trail, and he was very supportive. And friends, there's so many kinds of people. There are romances on trail, I
would imagine.
And gossip abounds. I mean, I spoke to somebody before I started, and I asked who had done it, and
sorry, you were
a lot of things like that.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, you're back on.
I spoke to somebody before I started, and she met her husband on trail. So that happened a lot, I think.
Yeah.
But the demographics on trail, well, that's something interesting to talk about. Is vast. You may have heard that the Sutton family recently finished, and their son is 5 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He's the youngest person to ever finish the trail, to do a full through hike. And then I met the oldest man on trail this year. I was really lucky to meet him in Maine. He's 82 years old, and he's about to set the record for being the oldest person to hike the trail. So the age range of people is, from 5 to 82. So I have friends who are in their 60s, and I have friends who are in their 20s and their 30s, and all different kinds. I would say that the race demographics are absolutely predominantly white, and it's unfortunate. You don't see many people of color on trail. I think that that's starting to change, but it's a very white experience, and that's something I hope to do in volunteer efforts, is try to help change that. I thought about that a lot on trail, but I have yet to see how that'll how I'll be able to help in that realm.
I mean, speaking of things, that you like you said, you thought of that a lot on trail. I mean, you must have thought of a lot, like on those walks, right? Like, you kept a journal.
I did.
And how diligent.
And I thought.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. I thought about it a lot, but I also had a very clear mind. Sometimes I found that I was just walking and not thinking about anything.
Yeah.
Except just sort of the act of walking.
Okay. There.
But now I'm on computer audio.
Oh, this is so much better.
It's so much better.
So much better.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay, I just assumed that the phone would be.
You're good. Don't worry about it. You're
Okay.
good. This is great. Okay, so we left off where we were talking about where you were thinking a lot, but at times you weren't thinking about anything at all.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of time to think when you're hiking for, 8 to 10 hours a day. But I found that most of the time my head was just clear of thoughts and just walking.
Right.
And that's never happened to me before. In the real world, my brain is running, full of thoughts, always what's next and what's happening, and a level of anxiety. And I had never been in a position where I just was just sort of free of all that feeling. And because I guess because you're not worrying about anything, or in my case, I wasn't worrying about anything. I was just, the only thing I have to worry about is walking. And do I have enough food? Do I have enough water? And where am I going to sleep?
So meditative in a way.
Yeah. I mean, it was, it's really because you're not, well, for me, because I wasn't having to be too concerned about anything else. And I was, incredibly fortunate to be in that position, to be able to let go of every worry and not think about it.
Did you ever see The Razor's Edge with Bill Murray? No? All right.
Maybe I'll put it on my list.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. And what I was going to say is like, you lived it, so it doesn't even matter anyway. But like, there's like a part in there, spoiler alert, if, just to let you guys know, but he wants to find himself, right? And so he finds these monks, and he has all these, he's carrying this big, huge backpack of like 20 dense philosophy books, and they send him up to this mountain and they say, come back down when you figure it out, right? And so he goes up to the mountain, and it's cold and it's snowing, and he's like reading these books. And the only way he could survive is by burning the books to keep him warm for shelter. And he burns all of the books, and then he's sad that he burned all his like deep thinking philosophy books. But by doing so, he was able to stop and then look out on the horizon. He goes, oh, I fucking get it now. Like, fuck these books, you know what I mean? Like, I'm right here in the moment, in the present, and kind of like what you were saying, but with the lack of anxiety and thinking about things in the real world, that when things are so simplified, you're just there.
Right. Oh, I want to see Bill Murray in that. I love him.
So it's really good.
You're just there in the moment. And a lot of people listen to things on their headphones when they're hiking, or listen to music, or listen to podcasts or books. And that's something that I never felt like I needed to do. There were moments where I was kind of bored, but and I think that, if we think back to like sort of me as a landscape architect and me as an individual on trail, I love just looking at everything around me and thinking about it, and thinking about, in walking over the rocks in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is called Rocksylvania because it's very rocky and it's very painful on your feet. And you stepping on these boulders, and the boulders would start moving. And I'm like, why are these boulders still moving after so many people have walked, hundreds and thousands of footsteps, and these have been here for hundreds of thousands of millions of years, and they're still moving. And I just start to think about like, okay, what is surrounding that? What did the glaciers do? How did these mountains get here? And just kind of things like that would sort of keep me occupied, or just seeing the mushrooms growing, and where they were growing, and why they were growing where they were. And I can't say I figured it all out. I didn't know the answers to a lot of things, and I would often see a lot of plants and want to know what they were, and I couldn't I didn't know what they were. But I guess those were the things that kept me occupied when I was walking. I really appreciated the small scale, because you didn't, on the Appalachian Trail, you don't get a lot of big views. Like the Pacific Crest Trail is known for having big, great views all the time, but this trail is really in the woods, and your experience is much different. It's, you know, it's called the Green Tunnel sometimes because you're walking through a green tunnel. But so I like those smaller scale things, which kept me occupied, and that kept my brain busy and free of stress, I guess.
Did you walk a lot at night? I would imagine there was times where you're walking in the middle of the night, right?
Some people do night hiking. I never did.
Okay. But certainly you did while it was dark at times.
Not so much. Really.
Okay.
No. I mean, I would be on trail sometimes at 6:15 in the morning or 6 in the morning, but it was already light out then, because the sun comes up so early. And I guess that was one of my fears. I didn't want to encounter wildlife in the middle of the night.
Right.
That was something
that's fair.
Sort of freaked me.
Very fair concern. What about technology? Like, you had a smartphone. Is it an iPhone?
Yeah.
So you had an iPhone. Was that it? Is that like? I mean.
Yeah, and a battery pack.
So like a charger, like a.
Yeah, but my phone was on airplane mode pretty much all the time.
Sure.
I would sometimes turn it on to see if I had a text I needed to respond to, or coordinate logistics or whatever. And technology-wise, I guess that was it.
Yeah. And you said you kept a journal, so that was a hand journal. And how diligent were you with the journaling?
I would say about half time. Definitely not every night. I wish I had done more. And even looking back at my pictures, I felt like I was taking hundreds of pictures, and stop distracting yourself by just taking pictures, being in the moment in the experience. But I look back at my pictures and I'm like, God, it just doesn't do it justice. Like I wish I had more pictures. So, but I'm keeping in touch with people and keep those memories alive with them, I guess.
Have people reached out to you, telling you that you've inspired them? And if so, what is that weird? Is that awkward to feel, or how does
it is? Yeah.
So people have then.
Well, my friends and people following me on Instagram have said kind words like that. And I'm very, very happy that I can encourage people and feel like they might be inspired to do hikes, or maybe even someday do the full trail themselves.
Or it doesn't even have to be a hike, just anything, any human obstacle, right? Like just something that like you have to overcome.
I guess I hope somebody has been inspired in that way. I'm one of many hikers, so to feel like, but I guess I've touched the people in my life, so that's great. And if I can encourage that, then that makes me really happy. Yeah.
So where do we go from here?
That's a good question. I find myself in this real world wondering, where do we go? I'm so, as I spoke about before, it's a moment of transition, and I'm trying to figure out how to keep the feeling of that just feeling of confidence and independence, I think, that I got from the trail, which was really wonderful. That I is like, it's just amazing. If you can survive in the woods and by yourself, then you just feel so uplifted by that. So trying to keep that, and also find a way where it can do landscape architecture to protect natural resources. I think I would be interested in doing more conservation work, and recreation and trails, of course.
Sure.
Now I feel I have a firsthand experience, but
I mean, there's firms that specialize in trail work.
That's true. Yeah. And that's so inspiring. That's just, I think that's a line of work that I would love to do. Being able to find something in New York New York City especially, where I can bring more of that outdoor recreation experience is something that I would love to do. But
2020 and 2021 has certainly brought its own certain set of challenges, awakened old challenges. You know, did it feel good to have like respite from all of the madness going on for a couple months?
It felt good, and it felt surreal because for instance, as I got closer to the Washington, D.C. area, there were a lot more day hikers who were wearing masks and would make a concerted effort to pass by, like pull off into the woods and I was like, oh, right. Like, even though we're outside, there's still an abundance of caution among some people. So, so it was a little surreal to be on the trail in a world where you're not so concerned because you're outside all the time, and then come into towns and have to really be cautious again. I did get vaccinated while I was on trail. I wasn't able to before I left, but found a place that I was able to while I was hiking, so that was great.
I just kind of have this vision of you like pulling into a town and pulling out a mask that's like wet and sweaty and like soggy from the rain, and be like, hold on a minute.
It's disgusting. Yeah. I mean, it's I feel really lucky to have been able to step away from that for a while. It's I do think that being outside is a comfortable and safe place to be. So it was great.
What about I guess this is a weird question, but did you have any like physical maps, like paper maps, or was it all on the phone?
There is a paper version of that app that I showed you, which a lot of people use, and I had that as well.
Did you find yourself using it, or no, not really?
That was an added weight that I probably didn't need to carry. But you know, it's good to have backup. You never know, especially like going into the woods. I mean, it's very sad to say, but you know, unfortunately, some people have died during the 18 because they got lost or wandered off trail, or you know, it's so you just don't know. You have to be safe. I carried a compass too, and I had a whistle. So
did you carry like anything like pepper spray or like a knife or anything? Because you weren't worried about that stuff.
No, I know that's one of the biggest questions too, is like, what kind of safety thing? Oh, your name is Guns, do you have a gun? No, definitely not a gun. No,
I mean, you're going through what you said, 5 states.
14.
14. Sorry, that's a big difference. I mean, that's 14 different laws with guns, but if it seems like you have zero interest in that, so you probably didn't even research it. But I would imagine, I think I would want to carry a gun, and that's 14 different state laws of
you don't
opening.
need to carry a gun.
You don't need to carry a gun, right? Yeah.
You don't. Like, yeah, I would say like that's more of a threat to yourself.
Right.
I mean, it's heavy. It's just not a concern to need a gun. Some people carry pepper spray.
Sure.
Or knives. Some women I saw carrying little knives around their neck, but no, I felt very lucky to not need that. And I know I'm from New York, so I think I always have an attitude of like, I'm tough. I grew up in the city. I can deal with it.
Sure.
So I'll punch a bear in the nose.
What's that?
I'll punch a bear in the nose.
Awesome. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm one of those people that are definitely inspired by you and following along on Instagram as you went. And it's just going to be really cool to see how this manifests in your life. I mean, I think it's going to manifest in ways that you don't even really know.
Yeah. I agree, and that's something I've thought about a lot. It's just seeing it unfold and feeling sort of at ease and feeling like it's not worth it to worry so much about everything, and finding ways to incorporate that level of happiness and stress-free life into everyday life is really important. But it's fascinating. The whole trail, and from a land management perspective, is something that I'm going to continue to research and read about and understand, because the network of people and volunteers, it's primarily volunteers who take care of the trail and shelters. It's a huge part of the East Coast, I should say, and East Coast protected natural areas and wilderness areas. So I think that's a really valuable thing to take away from the trail.
One of my goals in life is to do an Ironman.
Okay.
And once you do that, you're allowed to get like that Ironman tattoo that you see like on a lot of people's calves and stuff. So I'm curious, is there like any kind of like Appalachian token or tattoo or some kind of signifier to people like, yeah, I did this? Or
I mean, I've seen tattoos. My favorite badge of honor, I'll say, is at the halfway mark in Pine Grove, Pennsylvania. Oh shoot. In Pine Grove, is a place, a convenience store in a state park where you eat half a gallon of ice cream.
Oh, really?
And so that was my personal favorite badge of honor, is that I did the half-gallon challenge at the halfway mark. And I would happily do it again.
Really?
I love it.
What flavor did you pick?
So I started with mint chip, and then
nice, good choice.
Strawberry, because you actually need to have like 2 containers to make it half a gallon. So yeah, that's, I would say,
so mint chip, and then
badge of honor.
And then what was the
Strawberry.
Okay. I think it is in Pennsylvania.
Yep.
I just looked it up. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so that in terms of traditions, that's, I would say, something.
Yeah. And these are all guilt-free calories, right? Because you're at a 5,000 deficit every day anyway, so it's like,
no qualms.
Yeah.
No qualms about it.
Did you experience any body transformations doing something so strenuous over 4.5 months?
Yeah, I may have developed some permanent foot damage.
Oh, really?
Still waiting to see how that works out, but definitely.
Did you see an orthopedist yet?
Not yet.
Okay. All right.
I've definitely toned up. I mean, it was just.
I mean, your calves got to be like rocking right now, right?
Fit of my entire life.
What's that?
Like, most fit of my entire life.
Sure.
Ever. And I don't know how I'm going to maintain it.
You're not, because you're not going to be doing like 8 to 12 hours a day. I don't know. Maybe you could become a CrossFitter or something. I don't know. Something crazy.
It's so sad because that was just the most incredible shape I've been in my life. But
yeah. So how far are you removed from this walk? When did you finish?
It's been about 2.5 weeks.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it's pretty recent.
Yeah. But it's funny because it feels like it's so far away, actually.
Yeah.
Because it is such a different experience. You know, it's a different world. Guns is a different person.
Sure.
Same person, but just so yeah, it's been about 2.5 weeks.
Any like postpartum depression from doing an event like that?
Well, just missing being out there. I think just really missing that routine of every day, you know, waking up and walking, because every day was a new adventure. You're not walking the same trail. You're walking the same trail, but it's a different trail.
Sure.
So a new stretch of it and seeing
deep,
new
bro.
And it so I guess it's getting to see new things every day like that, really wonderful. So I miss that, and I miss the people a lot. It's so, it's, I don't know if collegial is the right word. It's
camaraderie.
The camaraderie, exactly. Yeah, because everybody's out there doing having the same goal. You have a different way of doing it. You may have a different approach. You know, I met a woman, one woman, she said she was out there because she wanted to get closer to God. I'm like, okay, that's great. Like, that's your hike. Good for you. Other people are doing it in memory of other people. Other people are doing it because they wanted to do it for 30 years. They've been dreaming about it, you know. So you have the same goal, but a different way of doing it. Physical capacity, ability of doing it. Some people are walking 30 miles every day. Some people are walking 10 miles every day, but you have the same destination. So the camaraderie of that is pretty amazing. And everybody's coming from such different places and backgrounds, yet you have that common goal. So that's a really wonderful experience, to just be able to walk up to a campsite and be like, hey, how's it going? And get along with all the people who are there, because you're all there in the middle of the woods on the same journey, and that's it.
And the etiquette, I assume, it's totally fine to like walk up to like a campground because you're all, it's like all one big experience, right?
Yeah. So that's really something that's awesome, that you can walk up to total strangers and you may only know them for 24 hours, but all of a sudden you feel like you're great friends.
And do they share, like, are you sharing snacks and, you know, supplies and stuff? A little
like,
bit, yeah.
Everybody kind of keeps you, because you plan out what
sure. Okay.
You know, so but absolutely, yeah, you share little things here and there, and that's a nice gesture, of course.
Yeah. Are there bicyclists on the trail? No. Are they not allowed?
No, not allowed.
Okay, that's probably a good thing. That would be another headache to
erosion would be
erosion. Yeah, sure. I didn't even think about that. I was just thinking about, you know, the annoyance of it, but yeah, the erosion would be significantly increased.
Yeah. So yeah, I know it's foot traffic only.
Yeah. And are you ever walking through hunting areas?
Yes, I think so, but Not the season that I was there. So I think there are some areas that are in hunting, but
I would imagine the hunters obviously know to stay clear from the trail.
I think so. Hikers also often tend to wear flashy colors. There's like a lot of flair out there, you know, people wearing like neon colors
for safety or bad fashion sense.
Fashion, like, you know, shorts with bananas and flamingos on them or something.
Okay. All right. Oh, here's a good question. Or I don't know if it's a good question, but it's a question. Are you a shorts gal or a pants person on the trail?
Shorts.
Wow.
And socks.
And what?
Knee-high socks.
Nice.
Because those protect my calves from scratches and ticks and
ticks. Let's talk about ticks.
They're out there.
Did you have to like clean any out? Or
I only had one that was kind of starting to bite in me.
And what did you do for removal?
I had a mini tweezers with me, and I picked it out and I burned it with my lighter.
Wow. Was that scary?
No.
I mean, so tough. That's awesome.
I don't know. It actually scared me that I didn't have more ticks.
Okay.
I was very concerned that I didn't have more ticks. But no, the bugs are crazy. I was also, speaking of bugs.
Yeah.
This was one of the, what was the name of the brood? I can't remember the brood, but the cicadas that came out this year.
Oh, that's right. That was the year.
Yeah. 17-year cicadas. I got to experience that, which was pretty wild. One night I woke up in the morning and my tent was just covered in cicadas. And
really,
something about the fabric of my tent they really liked, because my neighbors, neither of them had any on their tent. So that was pretty wild. Another crazy insect experience was in Connecticut.
Yeah.
It was a really extreme, like sort of bumper year of gypsy moths. And there were hundreds of acres that were completely deforested from gypsy moths. I'm not exaggerating when I say none of the trees had leaves on them.
Wow.
It looked like you were hiking in the middle of the winter. It was pretty devastating. And to see how much damage they had done to the forest, I'd never seen anything like that. So
yeah, I just Googled really quickly, like the decibel level of cicadas.
Yeah.
And it could reach like 90 decibels, which is really high.
Really?
How did you even, were you able to sleep because you're so tired from the walk, or did it keep you up?
I actually made it past the northern boundary of that brood.
Oh, okay.
The brood was only a certain region. I was there before they were in the mating season. So the mating season is when they're making that high decibel sound. I passed through when they were in their molting season. So they were coming out of the ground, out of the portal holes, which were little holes in the ground, and you would just see them on everything. So I was really fortunate to get out of the area before they started mating, because yeah.
Did you have, I mean, I carry earplugs with me wherever I go, just because I like to be able to control sound. Did you have earplugs on? No. Okay.
No, I didn't. The only time I did use them was if I was in a hostel, because sometimes you have like people who snore really loud.
Oh, that would be me after a walk like that.
In shelters, there's sometimes people who snore really loud, but I would just take a sort of an over-the-counter sleep aid.
Yeah.
It wasn't often, but every once in a while, if I knew there was a loud snorer or if I couldn't fall asleep. So, yeah.
Yeah. So would you ever do this again?
Yes.
Yes?
I think it's crazy to think about doing it again, but I want to see all those things again.
Sure.
Would
you pick the same trail or a different trail?
The PCT is tempting, but I don't love the idea of the desert.
Right.
The desert stretch is a little intimidating, and also the Sierra, the high Sierra, you're often on snowpack and some deep snow. So, but they say that the AT is technically harder than the PCT.
Okay.
So the mountains and the rocks and the roots and the terrain that you cover is a lot more challenging on the AT than it is on the PCT. So I don't know.
Now I'm afraid of heights. Would that be a problem? Is there moments where you have to?
There are some moments where you're kind of climbing up the side of a mountain and it feels a little scary.
Sure. Was there ever moments where you were able to like bathe in or swim in like a big natural body of water? A lot.
Yeah. I mean, more so in the north, in the north, especially Maine, which is my favorite state of the whole trail, by the way. But I mean, the lakes are just, it's wonderful. And you hear the loons at night and they're calling. I got to see a moose in one of the lakes.
No way.
Awesome. I mean, but yeah, there's streams and bodies of water where you could do your hiker bath.
I mean, I would imagine that bath would be something spiritual in a way. Like I don't necessarily mean a connection with God, but just like the euphoria of it maybe would be the right word. Like,
yeah, I would say, being in Maine in the middle of the wilderness and swimming in a lake, basically in your birthday suit because you're not carrying a bathing suit. That's a pretty awesome experience. There's nothing there. There's nobody there. It doesn't matter, and it's beautiful.
Wow. And that's earned too, right? There's a difference between like if I just get in my car and I go to like some lake and I go and I jump in and then jump out, right? And then I go to like some coffee shop afterwards. Like that's a lot different than your experience, right? You like
I guess that's true. It's like feeling like you earned it, and especially after like really sweaty, long, hot day. That's something. Sometimes I would just get to that campsite because there's the lake there, and you can get in the water. I'd be thinking about that all day. Just the hard hike, but just get there, and then you can swim. So,
what's the temperature of those lakes? Do you remember?
Oh, they were lovely.
Okay.
In Maine, it was really perfect. Not cold. I don't know what the actual temperature was.
Sure.
Perfectly comfortable and perfect.
Wow. So inspiring. Well, any closing thoughts or ideas that you feel like you would like to share with us?
No, I mean it's wonderful to be able to talk to you about this, and I did post a lot of pictures on Instagram, which maybe your listeners might like to see, and I did that not to be self-promotional, but because I felt that it was so beautiful and I wanted everybody to see it all the time. Just like, gosh, look at this salamander on this mushroom, and like look at this moss growing, and look at these trees and these plants, and as a for sort of a plant nerd like myself, it was just awesome and beautiful. So
well, I'll put that link up and I'll also share it with you guys right now. Her Instagram tag is ACBERGELIN. And I'll put it up on the show notes and when I promote this episode as well, so people can follow along.
Oh, I mean, the journey's done, but
yeah,
maybe look back at the pictures.
yeah.
Is that? I mean, it just want people to know that it might be right in your backyard. I mean, I passed a lot of places in the Northeast that were within easy distance from my home that I never knew about, and I would make mental notes of I have to come back here and go rafting. I have to come back here and go camping, and so just get out there and go for it. I mean, it may seem intimidating, but it's so worth it.
What are I think I try to like make sure I ask some of like the common questions that people are curious about, right? Is there any questions that I missed, like top 5 questions that you did what, and then they probably like a onslaught of questions like, well, how did you do this, how did you do that? Did I miss any of those common ones?
No, I think we covered. I mean, you started with the most important one, the bathroom question.
What about some questions, like what about some of the questions that you wish people would ask, right? Like, because right away people are like, okay, safety, food, body necessities, but is there any questions like, well, why don't you ask me about this, like this, what's important too?
I think when people ask about threatening people, like if there are people who are out there who are threatening, is what I mean. Like, did you encounter somebody that was threatening?
Sure.
But I think it's hard. People don't always ask about the other hikers that are out there and what they're like and what that community is like, because that's a big part of the hike.
Well, tell me about the community then.
I mean, the people you meet are your friends along the way, and that experience of meeting people is such a huge part of being on trail. So that's incredible. And the dynamics, the time and space dynamics of the trail are also like, I would love to see an infographic of all hikers on trail and where they're moving and when they're moving. Because, for instance, there's somebody I knew when I was in North Carolina, and I didn't see him for 5 weeks. And then all of a sudden I see him, up in Pennsylvania. I'm like, where have you been? Where have I been? How have we not seen each other? And so those dynamics of people moving on the trail is fascinating, because and then on the last day I meet somebody who's been through hiking, and they started 2 days after me. I didn't meet them until the last day of my hike, and that's just like, how did we never meet? How did that work? So the community of people and the people, the ones that you connect with and the ones you hike with, and that is pretty amazing, which I think most people, when I tell them I hiked solo, they're like, wait, by yourself? And I'm like, but you don't understand, there's so many people out there. And that's a huge part of the experience. So
I'm I'm involved in some like communities where right away, just because you're participating, you kind of fall into like the family a little bit, right? And like I practice jujitsu, and right away there's like wherever you go, there's kind of like a brotherhood and an understanding, and written rules and unwritten rules that is really hard for some people to understand. And I would imagine that that's what you're talking about. Like right away, just because we're on this trail and we're sharing this thing, there's a certain level of camaraderie already established that we could kind of count on.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Because what everybody's going through, I'm from a physical sense, and so no, you said it wonderfully. That's exactly it.
And I would imagine there's a level of respect, right? Like,
Yeah, Yeah, absolutely. And it's so that's one of the great things that I think most people don't realize.
Yeah. I might be in a small camp here, but I don't mind people's funk and sweat and smell. Like it doesn't, I think it's actually like, I kind of even like it a little bit. Like I think we've lost some of that.
It's really the gear that
smells.
the
gear that smells. Like, yeah.
Your backpack smells awful. Awful. Because that's absorbing sweat and getting so rank the whole time.
Right.
Like the body is fine. Your clothes smell. Your shoes smell disgusting sometimes. So it's really the gear that starts to get really.
Did you even bother to wear deodorant? No.
Oh no.
Because what's the point, right? Like.
Yeah, I mean that's just added weight to carry.
Yeah.
Don't want to carry that.
Right. It's probably not going to work after a while anyway. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's the stink it's real, especially after 2 weeks of rain.
Okay.
It's gross.
So your stink, because I was just kind of thinking about jujitsu, but your stink is different from ours because ours is just in the moment, and we wash our gis like every day, so it's not the
right. Imagine not washing your thing.
Oh no.
Like walking in the rain for 8 hours.
Yeah.
And then wearing it again and sweating in it.
Right.
And it doesn't dry out.
Yeah.
And then you put it on again the next day. So
what about
that's what it's like.
Did you have to deal with a lot of like chafing issues?
I didn't really have it too bad. But if I did, I would put Desitin on it, which is like diaper rash ointment.
Yeah.
And it's old fashioned, but it's like my go-to, and it's a lot high zinc oxide, so it helps heal it. But
no, I
didn't have issues really. I was pretty lucky in that sense.
When I was biking a lot, 100 miles and stuff like that, I would diaper rash was like the savior, and what's cool.
Did you use Boudreaux's or Desitin?
What's that?
Boudreaux's butt paste or Desitin?
Well, if we're gonna get into it, I mean, I would put I don't know what it was, but it was the Whole Foods diaper rash, and I would put on my finger and right at my butt.
Well, no, I'm just in product from a product stance. I really think Desitin is the best.
Okay, I don't know which one. It was just diaper rash, and it worked, and like up the crack and on the hole, and had to do it. But one thing that I like about this conversation is that like because I like to do kind of like big sports things, right? Like I just did like a 2-mile ocean swim race, and
awesome.
So I was training a lot with in parallel next to like Ironmen, triathletes, and like hardcore people. And like, you like there's real issues that you have to deal with and talk about, and like that it's safe in that context to talk with other people that are going with it, right? Like if you just go to a dinner party and you're like, hey, on a 2-mile saltwater swim, I got to put Vaseline on my balls, like they're going to be like, okay, that's gross, why are you talking about that? But when you talk with other athletes, they're like, oh cool, yeah, of course, why don't you try body glide instead, or like that kind of stuff. So did you have a lot of those conversations like on the hike, like at the end of the day, just kind of sit and bitch about all like the little ailments? And
for sure, yeah. It's because it's completely physical every day. And you're how are you dealing with this, or how are you dealing with that? I mean, every day was a new pain, sort of like my pain migrated throughout my body, different pains every day. And so
did you pass by like any like psychotic people that like ran the trail? Was there runners on the trail, or was there mainly people walking? Like, what is their problem? Like, why are you gonna step it up like that?
Actually, yeah, I had a really crazy experience. There's a world-renowned hiker, ultra marathon guy named Scott Jurek. I don't know, but I passed by him in Maine. He was going southbound, attempting to do the fastest known record of the trail. Unfortunately, I think he had to get off. He couldn't do it, but that was totally wild, because in the middle of the woods there were these photographers and people, and I was like, what are you guys doing here? And they said, oh, we're hiking the AT.
Mm-hmm.
Super annoyed, because I was like, no, you're not. Like, what are you talking about? And then this guy comes charging through, and he's amazing. And at the end, when I got to the campsite, my buddy Yard Sale was like, oh yeah, that was Scott Jurek. He's a super fan. So I had no idea who he was, but when hearing him, gush and go on and on about him was pretty awesome. So,
all right, you just said Yard Sale, and that's obviously his trail name. Yeah. You got to share some other like awesome trail names with us.
Of course, yeah. So so Zero, my friend Zero, Doc, Arrow, Yip, Lorax, Jackrabbit, Silver Goat, Patches. I mean, like, these are, actually I have a list of all people I met and their names, but
that's awesome.
They like all kinds of fun.
Are you allowed to give yourself your trail name, or does somebody have to give it to you?
No, that's not really cool. I mean, like, no, not really.
So you're supposed to, like, it's supposed to come naturally, like somebody's supposed to.
Yeah, and you can reject a trail name.
Sure.
Bear Paw was trying to give me one at the beginning. I was like, no, absolutely.
Yeah. And the fastest record for the Appalachian Trail is 45 days and 12 hours.
I know, it's insane.
That's crazy.
It's so I did it in 143 days, was it, or 45? Mm-hmm. 143. Yeah. And that's including 11 zeros.
Right. And in terms of trail times, how does yours fare? Is that about average? Is that like
it's on the faster
side? Okay.
Most people do it between 5 and 7 months.
Okay.
So I was 4 months and just about 3 weeks. So.
Yeah. Cool.
Which surprised me. I surprised myself. And so that's, I think, a good lesson. Like, go push yourself to do something and surprise yourself.
Was there people that would meet up on campsites and like have some drinks by the fire and then regret it the next day? Like, is there moments of that, or is
yeah, sometimes. Yeah. You pack up a beer or two, or pack out something. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Campfires aren't all that common.
Okay.
Because it gets dark and people just go to bed.
Got it.
But in the South, campfires were more common because it was really cold and it got dark early, so we would have campfires. But as it got farther north, it does, especially in the summer, it wouldn't get dark until 8:39 p.m. At that point, everybody's in bed already. So
yeah,
you go to bed at about 8:30.
Yeah.
Which is also really good. I miss that.
Annie, it was so nice catching up with you.
Yeah.
And you're such an inspiration.
I'm so glad. I mean, you're doing pretty awesome things yourself. So congrats to you for challenging yourself in all these amazing swims, 2-mile swim in the ocean. That's incredible. So
yeah, that was fun. I'm already kind of wanting to know what my next big thing is. I'm gonna do that swim yearly. I've done it twice.
Wow.
I definitely want to do a triathlon. I mean, I did a mini sprint one, doesn't really count. I want to do like a half Ironman. I think is
Amazing.
gonna be something special.
Whew. Take
But,
care of your body and
yeah.
see where it takes you.
Hey, did you get like a sports massage afterwards? Did you go to a chiropractor? Did you do any of that kind of stuff?
My boyfriend brought me a massage, but I haven't cashed in on it yet.
Oh my God, you're a crazy woman. You need to get on that right away. I'm really big into massages and sports massages just because of what you put your body through when you're doing that. So
I will. I'm
yeah.
gonna do this week.
Yeah, please do that. But you're awesome. You're an inspiration. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us about this.
Great
And
time.
I look forward to hearing from you. I don't know, like maybe like in a year or something, and kind of catch up and be like, so what's what because I feel like it's going to be a long release of concepts and ideas that come about from this, and I'd be really curious to see if you're even able to articulate any of the stuff that comes through on this. So
yeah, still processing.
Hey, what's harder, because we both went through the same grad program? Was the grad program harder or the Appalachian Trail?
Oh boy, oh my God, so different. So different. Sitting in front of a computer for many hours is pretty hard.
Yeah,
that's what I felt like I did.
I feel like one of them is meaningful and the other one's fucking bullshit, and I'll let the audience decipher which one I'm talking about.
I'm not gonna go there.
Awesome. I can't wait to see you in person sometime. Hopefully our paths come again. Maybe it'll even be
the conference. Are you gonna be in Nashville?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Are you going?
I think I am.
I go every year because I get a press pass and it's a good opportunity for the podcast. And this year, I'm not sure. I think I have a lot going on, and I don't know if I could take a week off to do it. But
yeah, I'm going as part of my contribution to ASLA New York.
Okay.
I've been an active member with them for a long time, so
yeah.
But
right.
Well, I'll see you when I see you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Annie. Guns.